Welcome to the Relatable Oklahoma Realtors Podcast, the show that sets out to demystify the world of real estate. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, investor, or a realtor with years of experience, this is where real estate is discussed and explained. Join me now for our hosts, Stacey and Burl Stricker.
Here we are.
What should we do?
Oklahoma Relatable Realtors.
Yeah. I'm Burl.
This is Stacey Stricker.
And we're here with Catherine.
Catherine Blake.
Catherine Blake. That sounds like a purse.
That's very designerish.
Yeah.
She's kind of amazing.
I'm kind of designer myself.
Do you have
She's so full
have your own fashion line?
No.
Is that why we're here?
Hoodie.
About
Is that
hoodie
a
collection?
hoodie and leggings?
Yeah. I think that since we're promoting it, we should get free samples.
Yeah.
Okay. When they come out, I'll make sure you get one.
We get free advice all the time.
Well, welcome. Thanks for being on our podcast.
Catherine Blake is my best friend.
How long y'all known each other?
Almost 20 years.
I think 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were joking around. You kind of walked out of the kitchen, or maybe you didn't find it funny, and that's why you walked out, because Catherine and I think we're funny all the time. But we've been through marriages, divorce, births, another marriage, another divorce,
Kids being born, kids moving out.
graduating, and then most recently our marriage.
Yeah.
We've been
That's
through a
awesome.
lot.
Yeah.
And then when you left, Burl and I were talking about, how you like relate to people. It's like when you share stories and and it's like we know everything about each other.
We do.
Yeah. Everything.
I know about people I've never even met. Vice versa.
Yeah. Because
What do you
we've
think,
shared
Catherine,
stories.
what do you think the secret to a 20-year friendship is?
We laugh at each other all the time.
We're brutally honest,
Yeah. We're both.
but not like mean.
No.
Yeah.
We're that way in our real lives with almost everybody. So we're like extra that way with each other.
Yeah.
I think.
Like, we're very honest about how we raise our kids, like with each other. Like we don't put on that fake front. Like we're having a really hard day.
Yeah.
Like there's that. I've probably sent it to you and you don't watch it because Catherine doesn't watch TikTok. But there's those moms on TikTok that are like, I really can't stand my kids today, and they're real, and they're like, if you have a 2-year-old and you don't feel that way yet, trust me, you'll get there in a few years.
Yeah.
We've always been real honest about
Yeah.
that.
We have. I mean, we don't pretend to be anything other than ourselves when we're around each other.
Yeah.
You said it last night when we were hanging out. You mentioned there's zero pressure to entertain or to we've laid on the couch together for 12 plus hours sometimes.
Yeah. So let me back up. Catherine lives 2 hours away. So when she comes here, it's usually for the weekend, and there is zero pressure. Like we've spent the whole weekend just vegging out.
That's
Pretty
true.
some of our best weekends.
Great. I'm laughing because I'm like, this is how it is. It's like, I'll sit back and listen to y'all talk.
I know
That could be the podcast.
this
I'll
is
sit
Burl's
back and listen
first
to y'all talk.
experience with us.
I wouldn't say
this
first,
long.
but
I mean,
that long.
So when Burl and I got married, like it was a surprise wedding. Catherine did not know, and we were
That was
having
mean.
we were waiting
bit.
for her to get here to start the wedding. So Peyton and Devin, who I work with, who are my other really good friends, obviously knew about the wedding because they helped plan the wedding. And I was like, have we heard from Catherine? Is Catherine here yet? And so Devin was checking in with Catherine. I don't even know if I've told you this. So Devin's like checking in with Catherine, like, oh, I'm going to stop and check in at the Bluebird. Like, no, you need to get here.
So first, that was a big day for me because I live in the Oklahoma City area. My niece was having her first dance recital. So I drove to Tulsa.
That's right. You did do that.
Went to her dance recital at the crack of dawn in cold weather, trying not to cuss. And then I was tired of people because that's how I am. And I thought, oh God, I got to drive all the way to Dog City and go to this stupid party and meet this guy I've never met before. Okay, let's go
So
do
our
this.
surprise wedding was covered up as Burl's 50th birthday party.
Yeah. So I drive all the way to Elk City and I get to the Bluebird, which is the sweet little place downtown Elk City. And I was in that room and I was like, oh my God, I could take a shower and just stay in this room all night. Like it occurred to me to totally blow off. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it because I wanted to hang out with you. But for a minute, I thought hiding in this hotel room sounds pretty amazing. And then Devin was like, where are you? And in my head, I thought, geez, like, why are you? I will be there in a minute. Why do you even know I'm not there? Like, how have you?
Like, why are you at my ass?
Yeah. I thought there's a ton of people there. How do you even notice I'm missing? And then I got here and I was like, oh, there's people in my parking spot. I'm very territorial.
I have to park in the pasture. What is happening?
Been coming to this house for 20
How many
years.
people can say we have a parking spot? Yeah. There's enough land here for a parking spot.
Right.
So you guys also have a business connection, and tell people listening what your company does or what you do. And you told me some last night, but tell us.
Okay. I own a small business development firm. We are Scissortail Resource Group. We specialize in small businesses. I've got clients in multiple states, but essentially we're a two-part company. We've got our bookkeeping and accounting side, and then we've got our advisory services side. And the advisory services works really closely with startups or new businesses, or let's say a company's been in business for 3 or 4 years and they can't figure out why they've plateaued. They bring us in to basically teach business owners how to be business owners. And what we have found is that the advisory side sort of feeds the accounting and bookkeeping side, and vice versa. Someone will hire us for bookkeeping and accounting, and we get into their books and we're like, oh, you need some advisory services. And then we kick them over there and it works out really well. We've been in business since 2017.
Great.
So I know you've worked with a lot of startup restaurants. Tell us like some other businesses.
So our niche, for lack of a better word, is like field service type companies. So general contractors, lawn and landscape companies, HVAC companies, like field services, people who go out into the field and provide services for people.
She also does real estate.
I do.
She does ours.
My background prior to doing what I do was commercial real estate, property management. And
that's how we met. We worked for the same property management company.
Yeah. So by default, I like working with those people and I know it. So it works well to be part of our company too.
Yeah. And I've heard you like over the years, because of course we naturally talk about work with the restaurant. So that's always been interesting to me because, you know, if you've never owned a business, you don't realize you don't make money. Like you can't put money in your own pocket in the very beginning. So I think, tell me like how you've had to help new business owners.
I would challenge that and say, if you don't build your personal income or the wage for yourself into your startup cost and budget, then you're doing yourself a disservice. But
yeah,
I have a super soft spot for restaurants and bars. And I say this, I attribute so much of the skill I have in a bunch of aspects of my life from the years I spent in the restaurant service industry. When I was like 18, 19, 20, I waited tables until I was about 22, raising a kid by myself. And I feel like that's where I learned to be efficient with my time. That's where I learned customer service skills. Like, I feel like I pulled some really great skills out of that industry, and I've always had a soft spot for them since.
It's kind of interesting you bring that up because I started in the restaurant industry, was in it for years, and I still use some of those same techniques.
You do, Bennigan's.
Yeah, I work for Bennigan's.
I was at TGI Fridays.
Yeah, I worked for Texas Land and Cattle. And
yeah.
So, yeah.
I got fired from there because I wouldn't say y'all.
That's funny.
I refused.
That's the only reason you got
out of that industry. I thought that would.
I only worked there for a week, and I refused to say y'all because I was a snob.
That's funny.
So, how did you get started with your business? What was the major thing that made you say, "This is what I'm going to do"?
I'm going to go out on my own.
It was sort of. I mean, I say it was an accident, but I mean, if you had told me, hell, even when we met, 20 years ago, if you had said, Catherine, you're going to end up doing accounting and business, I would have laughed at your face. I pretty sure I cheated my way through pre-calc. You know what I mean? Like, wasn't my thing. But I have an aptitude for understanding businesses and structuring organization and people and things like that. And I was kind of thrown to the wolves at a job for a while that I loved, but I had to struggle my way through it. And I learned so much at that job. And I left it and I went from that job, after I had kind of taken everything from that job I started at a public accounting firm doing just as a staff accountant. And that's where I learned the ins and outs of bookkeeping and tax laws and compliance. And I loved working there, but it was a very compliance-based job. And I learned so much, and I worked with people that, I mean, I will forever cherish everything about those jobs. But I joke, I used to get in trouble all the time because I would do what they called, it was like non-billable work, right? I could look at my clients' books and be like, man, your wages are out of control. Like, what can we do? Why is this expense so high? Or your cost of goods sold is disproportionate to your income. Like, what's going on? And I would talk to them about that and come up with ideas to help them. Well, that's not tax compliance work. And so it wasn't billable. It wasn't part of our engagement, but I was spending my time doing that. And that just wasn't what that firm did, but I realized I liked doing it. So when my time came to an end at that firm, and I wanted to start my own company, when I started Scissortail, it was there is no tax work. I do not file tax returns. I know them, and I can help you design your business to be tax advantageous, but it is operational and managerial minded. And I found this gap there because people will call their CPAs for advice on, they have this whole, like, we can be tax compliant and advantageous, but how do I get from point A to point C? And nobody was really talking about B. And B is my sweet spot. So that's what we do.
I can see that you definitely had a niche because, I mean, there are accounting firms that do like day-to-day accounting for companies, but really they specialize in the tax part of it. And so that's that little middle ground where nobody's really working and helping. So, one thing that comes to mind is that you are like an expert in the fact that you have started your own company. Like so many people that you go to for advice, for whether accounting advice or whether sales advice or marketing advice, they've actually never done it themselves. And so when I hear your story that I know you've done it yourself, which makes way more valuable because you've actually done it yourself. You own your own business. Whereas you working for someone else, it's easy to say in theory, this is how you do it, but you actually, know how to do it because you've been there. It's not saying you're an expert in everything, but on the same point, you actually own your own business experience, which a lot of people lack.
I mean, I would agree because I thought I was an expert when I worked at at those larger firms, and advice was one of my jobs. And I did theoretically know how to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
What nobody talks about when you start a business, or maybe no one talked about it to me and I figured it out as I went, is you have to change your mind a lot. And so you might think you've got a plan A, right? This is my plan when I started my company. And you realize a year into it that is not, okay, I need to add to that, or I need to pivot, or I need to make some changes because, using myself as an example, I thought I could build, I thought restaurants were going to be my niche.
Right.
But the field services kind of came on it was a natural progression. And when I found out that fits better, well, then it was time to deep dive and learn much more about those industries. And so that was just
I actually think it makes perfect sense because, like, for example, if you need a plumber, it's like you can do it yourself or you can hire the professional. The same thing if you need business advice, you can kind of figure it out yourself or you can hire somebody who can actually give you that advice.
When I look at Catherine's industry, and she does mine. So she started out doing, like, when I just had, like, Stacey Carnes Real Estate, you helped me with mine, like prepare for my taxes. Like you said, you don't do tax work, but you do like through my QuickBooks. And then now you've done our office. So you do it on two different levels. Well, for me, like as a, personal business owner, like that taxes are stressful. Like you've seen me
Right.
talk about it. Like, you know, I file extension every year and I wait till the last minute. Well, when I would do it myself, it's like, okay, I'd have all my receipts, and I don't know everyone's method, but my method was I had an envelope system where I'd put them all in an envelope, this category, and I'd add them up and then send them to my accountant and all that. Well, now that all goes away. I'm probably the worst one for Catherine. She hates my system, but because she's my best friend, she still does it, which I want you to talk about that. But you've taken all that stress away where you just get in there and you categorize it and put it in a spreadsheet, and then I can turn that into my accountant. So I'm not putting it on the back burner anymore.
Right.
Thank God, because that was a nightmare.
And that's important. This is what I say to everybody, to all business owners out there, because we're all guilty of it. I'll get in the weeds in something within my own firm, learning something. There's nothing we can't go learn. You can go learn to do accounting. You can go learn to do QuickBooks. I could go learn to sell a house, but is that my aptitude? Is that my skill set? Do I like that part? No. So does it serve me and my time and my interest better to have someone else do that, right? Like, is it a good use? So using you could do your own bookkeeping. You could do your own expense tracking. That's fine. But is that a good use of your time, or is your time better served being out, showing houses, picking up new clients, getting new listings?
Right.
So you can pay us an hourly rate to get that off your desk, and you generate the revenue.
Oh, I agree. Plus,
That's,
it
you know what
takes.
that is value added. It's a
Oh,
it's a term
yeah.
that's used that a lot in business, but it's value added. They say that we spend like 80% of our time on non-value added items.
Yeah.
When it should be flipped.
Oh, I
we
agree.
spend 80% of our time on value added. I know when I first started a business, it was like landscaping, and really the revenue was coming in. It was like good revenue.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is I didn't know how to run a business.
Yeah.
This is before I went to college, and so like me, I would spend a bunch of time thinking I was doing the right thing by putting some receipts in an envelope and doing these things.
Right.
But I ended up spending 80% of my time on these non-value added items, yes. And not 20, not 80% of my business.
Not
Right.
talking to your
Yeah, yeah.
customers, not getting
Right.
new referrals. I mean, all that kind of stuff. And using your method, your envelope method, or let's be real, it was a pile of crap on your bar, and I would come home and find it.
So rude. Shoot, that would be a weekend. Catherine's in there plugging it in. But what I learned is like that was a weakness. That was, so when I think you realize what your weaknesses are and you say, okay, I am not good at this, nor do I want to do it.
Right.
And like, let's go to the professional.
People are really great tacticians, right? People are really good. People who like to bake are fabulous bakers. And this is every profession. I work with a lot of doctors and dentists. They are highly educated, highly skilled people at being a physician, at drilling teeth, at doing whatever they do. You get them in the books, and are they smart? Could they figure it out? Absolutely. But they don't, it's not good for them, or they can't. Sometimes that high level of learning, or the level of learning where they function, doesn't translate well to this
Right.
other area of business. And so I say, if you're a baker,
Yeah.
go be a baker and let me help with your business.
Right. Well, it's like, so yesterday you came in and you wanted help with marketing, and you were like, oh my gosh. And I looked at you and I said, why don't you pay Jordan or Nadia $5 a post? You're like, yeah, exactly. Why don't I? Like, why would you try to go, and that would take you twice as long?
I know. And I call that's my personality flaw. I have what I call my shiny object syndrome. I want to be a master of everything. And I have to remind myself it doesn't
Like when
matter.
you get to a certain level, you can't. So that's like, I was telling Catherine yesterday how you pay through your home health care, Jordan, $5 a post. Well, she wants to up her marketing. So she's having Devin teach her.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are we doing this?
Pay
Pay someone to do it.
Yeah.
I wanted to pay. Like, I've tried to hire people to do my marketing. But I don't, every time I meet a different company, I just wasn't finding what was going to work for me and my desire for marketing. And I had no idea how to pay somebody. And it wasn't until you talked about per post, I was like, That makes perfect damn sense.
Yeah.
You know, something else that brings to mind, it's like we have a tendency to like kind of hide our little, I guess, our little demons or our little things that we like. For example, with the receipt thing, you go back to it. It's like it's like, oh, I put Red Bull on this receipt for work.
When we were working on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
flip
we were
house,
looking at that. But my point is that, you know, you just do it and then you think, oh, it's fine. Or you intermingle between your personal stuff. And it's like, you don't want anybody to know that you do that because you know in your mind that it's not right. So one thing I love about what you're talking about is the fact that it gets it all out in the light. I think you have to overcome this little embarrassment. Like I'm embarrassed that I have a pile of receipts and I don't know exactly where it goes. And then, but I think the most amazing part of what we're talking about is that if you can cross over that line and be like, okay, I'm going to allow you guys to actually dig into it, actually fix it for me, but it relieves the stress off of you that you didn't know existed.
Well, you bring up a super good point because it's something I deal with every day, literally every day.
Yeah.
There is something so super vulnerable about people's finances.
Yeah.
It is very personal.
I know everything about everybody because I have access to bank accounts, right? Like I can log in and see who stayed at what hotel and when and
where did they stop before they went to the hotel?
what bar were you hanging out at? But, and I joke a lot. If someone had told me when I went to school that I should have probably ended up with a psych degree also, because I look at these high functioning people that I work with every day that I admire. And then they have these small little deficits. And I think just like me, not the marketing thing, you know, like I'm really good at this, but not that. Right. So I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like, why can't you figure that out? But it's that vulnerability, but it's what makes me love my job and who I work with. And I think Stacey's heard me say this a lot. I love who I work with and I'm super picky about my clientele, but I flip that around and I try to be myself and be equally as vulnerable, maybe to my clients and the people I work with, because I want to be able to have that trust. Well, they won't be scared to hide that pile of receipts from me, or they won't be scared to tell me, you know, the truth about being on vacation that shouldn't have been a business, you know, but I ran it through the business because, you know, for whatever reason, I need to know all the details.
Right.
And
there's two sides of that. You could have a side where, man, and I see this too equally because I have, you know, a degree in accounting and do a lot of accounting. But I see one side of it is they didn't realize they could actually write these off as expenses because they just didn't know. You have that side, and then you have the side of, I'm trying, you know, I thought, you know, I'm pushing this through and it really shouldn't be a business expense.
Well, that's what I was going to touch on with Stacey's pile of receipts is I almost guarantee you that before there were expenses that
I was missing
deductible expenses that you weren't catching because of your system.
I think there's more of those, honestly with most people.
People are good.
Well, because you think about it, it's like I don't think about my mileage or I don't think about like this expense that I did take someone to dinner that was completely related to business. You know, I think we forget those things. And so I think it's equal on both sides. Yeah, I'm making mistakes and I'm not probably accounting for this expense correctly. But I think people could easily on the surface look at your company and say, you know, how are they changing people's lives? How are they making things better? But you absolutely see it because you're taking that burden off someone. It's like, I'm not sitting around stressing about, am I doing it correctly?
Yes.
I'm not taking all this non-value added time and spending it on something I'm not really that good at in the first place.
Right.
And, you know, so I see it. And like, for me, I automatically sense it, like listening to you, that it could relieve a burden that, you know, if you have the IRS, for example, on your back, it is rough.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, we all have our things. Like, I don't think I'm a great salesperson, right? Like, that's not what I want to do. But what's my favorite thing to do is pile up my stack of accounts that I need to reconcile for a Friday afternoon, throw my sweatpants on, listen to a podcast, and reconcile the hell out of some bank accounts all day.
Did she just say listen to a podcast? But has she listened to ours?
I haven't listened.
Do you hear that?
We're going to have to.
Do you hear this? That's some bullshit. That's what that is. So about I don't know, like a little over a year ago, Catherine, she came in and spoke to all of the realtors in our office. And I think you opened up some eyes. So essentially everyone that has their real estate license, they're independent and they're contractors. And so you gave them some good advice and some of them immediately acted on it. And I think one of those things, I remember you saying like pierce the veil.
Yeah.
That was one of the terms you used. So I don't know if you remember everything you shared, but you were real big on, have a separate account, have an LLC. Like, will you share some of that and the benefits to it?
Sure. So essentially, like you said, if most real estate brokers and companies, if you're a licensed realtor, you operate as a contractor through a brokerage. So you theoretically, or not even theoretically, literally on paper, you are a business owner. You own a company by yourself, whether you're running that through your social security number on your W-9 or if you're running it through an LLC, but you are a business owner. So that makes it super important to structure your finances as a business owner. There's a lot of protections to be served by starting an LLC. An LLC is a legal term that often gets mixed up with a tax term. An LLC can be lots of different tax items. So an LLC can still be a sole proprietor. But when Stacey mentioned piercing the veil, what she's talking about there is by running your company as an LLC, which means you filed with the Secretary of State, you've got a federal tax ID number, and you're running everything under that federal tax ID number. You have a separate bank account that is opened under that federal tax ID number. What that does by running your business through an EIN, federal tax ID, is you are protecting your personal assets, any type of personal setup you have from any liability that may happen under the business name. And piercing the veil is a term that people use when you're co-mingling your finances, even if you have an LLC, if you're co-mingling your money, if you're running things out of every other bank account all at the same time, you've pierced that veil, which means you have now opened up your personal bank account, your personal assets to those liabilities. So keeping that line drawn between your business and your personal is very important for your own personal protection. Anything can happen in business. People, litigation is real. It happens all the time. You can't control it. It's nonsensical sometimes. And if you've built a life full of stuff, that you want to keep that separate from your business.
Yeah. So when you gave that advice, so Kelly, one of our top realtors, she immediately went and filed a personal LLC. So she went from us cutting her commission checks to her LLC. So she acted on it immediately, which was some great advice that you gave her.
Catherine, speak on the fact of where I see the biggest mistakes made is when somebody's really let's say they're starting out new business or a new realtor in this case. To me, it's like they're not making any money. So you see a lot more of basically I'm bringing money from this account. I'm intermingling a lot more. And also not just, the business isn't making money. So I have to put money into it, but also have to take more money out maybe because I may put some personal expenses on that account because I'm not making any money. So what would your advice be to someone who's just starting out and trying to, navigate all that? What would be your advice?
Well, I think, and we'll just stick with the realtor term because I remember when Stacey got her license and we were learning, we kind of did that stuff together.
And I'll be honest, I commingled and it drove Catherine nuts because when she would reconcile.
But it makes sense that people.
Because you live off of it.
When I started Scissortail, it was completely funded I funded the startup of my business. There was no loans, no capital investment. It was me. But there is a technical way to manage that money between the two bank accounts that keeps it separate. So when a person owns a business and they have their personal checking account, of course, you have to put personal money into the business to start it, right? So let's say a realtor is starting out and she needs to buy herself 5 yard signs to keep in the garage. Well, the business account has no money in it. So my advice is give yourself a budget or build kind of how much am I going to need for this business? And if you've got the personal money to do it, great. Then take that dollar amount. So let's just say $5,000 from your personal account, flat amount of money, move it to your business account. And it's considered in the business account a capital investment. It is a capital contribution to your business. Then you can continue to run all of your expenses out of that account. So you're tracking them appropriately. And that's how you do that. It's the owner contributing money into their business. I would say that is the best way to do it. I don't recommend swiping your personal account, your card, and then just taking those expenses. But if you do, think of yourself as like an employee. If you are an employee at what's your health care?
Above all home care.
Yeah. If you're an employee at Above All health care and your home care and you're running around and you buy a few things while you're out between houses, they would need to turn in an expense report, right? They would create an Excel spreadsheet with those expenses on it. They'd staple their receipts and then they'd hand it to you. And then you would write them a check to reimburse. You need to treat yourself in that same manner.
That's great. That's great advice. It really is. I mean, I think it sounds so simple. And like me listening to this, I know that. I know exactly what you're saying. But
simple, but that's why
I don't think people think about it when you the way you said it about think of yourself as an employee, because I worked for big corporations and had to fill out those, and I had tons of expenses.
Sheets. Yeah.
Whenever I was like a regional, I'd have to every month literally fill out an entire sheet of mileage and of receipts and all these things. And then I would submit it once a month and it would be a couple of pages.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like kind of a pain in the butt. But it was also, it had to be right for them or they wouldn't pay it.
Correct.
And I think that's a great way to put it.
Treat yourself that way. So that is simultaneously moving money appropriately. But one of the things that's vital in owning a business is keeping your records and audit proofing your business. And audit proofing 101 is reconciliation. If you can't reconcile your books to a bank statement, then you're already in a hole, right? You're already wrong. So if you can't reconcile, I wrote a check to Stacey for $10 as reimbursement, but I can't reconcile what that $10 for. Upon audit, they would deem that not a legitimate business expense. They would kick it over and make it back into your income to make it taxable.
So what do you think? I know there's people in our office that put everything on one business credit card and pay it off each month. And then their credit card categorizes it for them. And so they turn that into their accountant. What's your opinion on that?
I mean, I don't think that's bad. I don't think that's wrong. I think that there's a couple of reasons that's not best practice. One is, so from the accountant's side of that equation, whatever the client hands them, they're going to take at face value. It is not their job to review that and say, yes, no, yes, no, yes.
I think that's important that you're
that's
bringing
really
it up.
good.
And a tax attorney would tell you this. I'm not a tax accountant, is that whatever you give them, it's not their job to say it's right or wrong. It's just you're giving it to them.
We advise, we give you advice. We say, this is the law, this is the rule. This is what you say. And you were like, yes, Catherine, this entire trip to the Bahamas was a business expense. And I'm like, the risk of that being false is A, B, and C. Are you willing to take that risk? And you say, yes. I now take at face value that your trip to the Bahamas was a legitimate business expense. I have to, because that's what my client said.
Right.
If now a good client, a good accountant, and every accountant I've ever known, if they won't blatantly do something false. If a client tried to turn in inappropriate stuff, they would say, this is outside my level of ethics, or this is not in the ethics of our firm. We won't do this for you.
Right.
And that's fine, but you're responsible for it at the end of the day. We call that provided by client, PBC work.
Now, you actually, on an audit, you have to sign things that say that. When you're talking about you're getting audit or you're having an audit done, you have to sign paperwork that says, really on all tax return stuff, you have to sign it that they haven't. They just took it at face value.
So
it's in my engagement letter.
we should not just turn in a credit card like year-end statement. Like if we're doing it ourselves, we need to reconcile it and say, okay, this really is, like maybe this really fell into marketing or whatever.
I mean, even the stuff, not what I do for your business, but what I do for you personally, your personal expense tracking, even though you are handing him a spreadsheet, a profit and loss report, essentially,
right?
That's still provided by a client. We just know that it's right because we've done it together. But anyone can go out and create that for themselves.
Right.
There's an easy way to do it from your bank account. And sometimes that is the best. If a business has 10 transactions a month, is it totally necessary to run the software costs of QuickBooks and all that stuff? Probably not. But they are at the mercy of what you give them. And if you're not an expert in expense tracking or business tax, you're probably leaving money on the table by not capturing the right expenses, or maybe overstating your income. Or if you're like me, I think something's going to take me 10 minutes, but it really takes me 2 hours. So I shove it together, I'll get it done real fast and I'll miss stuff.
Yeah.
But so by getting that off your desk and handing it to someone that specializes in it, there are more eyes on that and making sure you're getting everything captured.
I know Burl and I've talked about, he's always said he is real big in, hiring professionals. Like, that is not my expertise. Like, we've talked about it in real estate. Like, you've always used a realtor. Like, I
think people are very short-sighted when it comes to things like that. They think that I can, like you said earlier, yes, I can watch a YouTube video and figure it out. And yes, I'm smart. But the problem is back to that value added. But that's why you don't do taxes, is because really same thing with me. Whenever I first graduated, I did like some family members, friends' taxes, but I understood really quick that the tax law is so huge that you have to be an expert on it. You have to constantly be doing updates on it, training on it, and you don't want to miss something for your clients.
Right.
So in that particular case, it makes absolute sense to hire someone who's an expert on that, because you're probably leaving money on the table as well. But I recently talked to someone who owned their own business, and they were doing quite a bit of revenue each month, and they were talking, basically they were going on and trying to do their tax through TurboTax or something. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. Don't do your own taxes.
Yeah.
Not at the business level you're at.
Well, and the IRS just hired 20,000+ new employees.
Yeah, they're trying to. Yeah.
So what's your thought on people doing their own taxes if they own a business?
I would say if you're just a standard W-2 person, if you work for someone else and you get W-2s at the end of the year and that's your only source of income, do your own taxes. No big deal. I think in the business, if you own a business, and I'd go so far as to say it doesn't matter how big or small. I think hiring a tax professional is super important.
I agree.
It's not even just to stay compliant and keep yourself safe. As Burl said, they know stuff that you would never think about. Like, people, I get this a lot. People will ask me, I make this joke. It's not a joke. I bet I haven't been to a social function where someone didn't ask me some asinine tax question. I'm not kidding. They're always like, well, what if I did this? And I'm like, and the answer is always,
it's kind of like asking real estate advice, but I don't want to hire you to sell or buy.
That's true.
So true.
One time I offended this guy. We were at a bar, we were talking, he starts asking me tax questions, and I'm like, and I was just not in the mood, right? And I go, listen, I charge people a lot of money to ask me these questions.
Right.
And it's not worth a beer. And he was so...
That is freaking fabulous. It's not worth...
Not worth a beer. That might have led down other rabbit trails that was not worth a beer as well. That's funny.
Oh my gosh.
He didn't hang out with me much longer after that, but
he got the hint.
But it's hard to answer those kind of questions in isolated instances because there are so much facets to people's finances that go into the decision-making process, right?
You have all night. That's
Well, because the answer is it could be this, or it could be this, or it could be that. And I mean, I think I'm a good example of it. I have a tax professional he files all my tax returns for me. And I used to file tax returns for like, I mean, this isn't new territory for me. But in my own personal world, I do all my own accounting, of course. And I had created a tax projection for myself. Okay, I'm projected to make this much money for 2022. This is what my estimated tax bill is going to be. I had done all of that for myself. And I met with him, I hand over on my paperwork, and I just knew I was going to have to write a $20,000 check, and I had saved up for it and I was ready for it, but damn, I didn't want to do that. Right. Cause I also had a lot of other fun things I'd rather do.
Right.
And he walks through my tax return. And he's like, okay, well, it looks like your tax obligation is going to be about it was $5,200. And I was like, what? And he was like, I go, no, he's like, no, I hadn't put into there were tax credits I hadn't thought about or things that passed during the year prior to me creating that engagement that I hadn't then put into my equation. And so he knew more than me.
Right.
Which also meant when I filed my tax returns, because I had been saving up for this estimate like a good business owner.
Look at you, so grown up.
I know, such a big kid. I'm such a big kid sometimes. I now had an automatic savings. Like now I have a pile of money. And I was like, oh, thank God. But so now, because I was ahead of it. But he was the professional. I thought I was a professional and I thought I had teed myself up appropriately. And then he added to it.
That's something really smart to say is like you were estimating. So when you're contract labor, you're not, taxes are not being taken out of your check. And we had this conversation when you brought Brian on, how does someone manage that? So how much do you suggest? Because that was exactly what Brian said. How much should I hold out of my check, each month? And sit back. So until you get a full year, you don't really know what to estimate for the year coming up.
Right.
So what would you say? Like 20, 30%? I feel like accountants usually have like a straight number.
Yeah, I'm pretty conservative when it comes to just guess saving. I say 25% of every.
I feel like that's plus what you said too.
I say 20.
20, yeah.
25% of everything. Now, do most people have a 25% tax rate? Not really. They might think they do because people hear the news, but they don't. Yeah. And so
that gives you a cushion.
It gives you a cushion. And I will say this is probably the number one thing I see go sideways in businesses is they don't prepare for an upcoming tax bill. And I've preached this. Stacey's heard me say it 100 times. If you save your money leading up to tax. So what happens is people run their businesses, and I know cash is hard. Cash flow is a problem. People run short on cash. So you file your taxes in March and April, and you have to write a check. Well, if you don't start saving for that check, for that tax bill till January, February, March, what you're doing is you're paying yesterday's bills with today's money.
Right.
Which puts you behind the 8 ball. If you're saving up January and February money from 2023 to pay 2022's bills, you're already behind the 8 ball in 2023.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So save up in advance. And I know nobody wants to do that. I don't even want to do it. I'm really a giant fan of going on vacations, but it's just the big kid thing to do.
Right. Or pay quarterly. And
a couple of things come to mind is one, I think that most people don't realize, like a tax professional, their job is for you to pay the least amount of taxes that are legal. That's their goal. They want to help you pay the least amount because it's legal.
And we learn the rules so that we can work appropriately within them.
Yeah. So a lot of people think, one of the reasons that you should hire a professional is because of that aspect right there. I think personally that if you're going to do your own taxes, you're going to end up paying more than you should, is what I believe.
Probably.
Or
getting caught not paying.
Right.
Exactly. So, you're opening yourself up to liability.
And then another thing, I think you hear a lot, like I hear a lot of people using taxes as an excuse not to start a business. But I'm like, if you have to pay taxes, then that means you're making money. You know, I don't think people realize
Say
that.
that again.
Does that make
I
sense?
say that all the damn
I
time.
don't, it's like, I see that a lot as an excuse again, that people say, oh, I wanted to start this business, but then I don't start this business because I'm afraid, you know, I'm going to owe the IRS a bunch of money. And I'm like, you only owe the IRS money if you make money. And part of that is then I say that I told this to Brian, and I say this to a lot of people, is that people that pay the most amount of taxes are employees,
Absolutely.
not business owners.
I would tell you that. So I had for years was a salaried professional in what everyone would consider really good jobs. Like I had good jobs in good companies making good money.
Yeah, with benefits and
the whole shebang. And I had to do that. I was a single mom with 2 kids. So having a job that was stable was important. And all of the reasons, there's a lot of good reasons to stay W-2. I don't think business ownership is for everybody.
That's right.
And it wasn't until my life got a little different that I had the flexibility to be able to do that. But I will tell you, my take-home pay is probably not much different today than it was when I was in that salaried job.
Yeah.
But because I own a business, there are certain items in my personal budget that are no longer part of my personal budget.
Cell phone is the perfect example.
your
People don't-
vehicle or
So
yeah.
it used to cost me, $3,000 a month to live. My bills were $3,000 a month, let's say. And I'd get my paychecks, which were net dollar amounts, right?
Mhm.
And that's what would pay my bills. Well, now that cell phone bill, for example, is now a business expense, which now it's in my business budget, which means my personal budget is now not $3,000 anymore. It's $2,200. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your money, it helps you understand and manage. And so you are taking home more,
Yeah.
even though, or you're netting different amounts, but
Right.
I think that's, believe it or not, that it didn't just come from there, but it really does come from the book that keeps coming up when we're talking to people,
Rich
which
Dad.
is Dad, Poor Dad. It comes
Yeah.
from there.
I've read it. Yeah.
Here we go.
I
Here's
think
another
that
one.
When you see very astute business people, they've read that book,
Yeah.
and of course, maybe years ago, but, and they always seem to find some nuggets of truth and just good advice in there.
Right.
And that's in there. And it talks about that the employee pays way more in taxes
Right.
than a business owner.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you got to manage it. Catherine, whenever I know this for a fact, because I even feel it like through this conversation, it's funny because it's human nature. Like when you're listening to this, our conversation, it's easy to think, oh my God, I'm probably not doing this right. Oh my gosh, I'm not probably doing that right. I mean, it's human nature. In other words, like a conversation like this almost is hard to hear. And not necessarily when somebody finishes listening to it, they might even be feeling like, depressed or sad, and I'm not doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. And I know that by listening to this podcast. How could people get a hold of you and, like, let's say your company, if they want some help, and what's the best way to reach out to you and be able to find that advice?
Well, we have our website. We are Scissortail Resource Group. Website's the same, scissortailresourcegroup.com. And on our website, there is a button, and it will send you right to my online calendar, and you can schedule an appointment with us. And all your first appointments are free, and we'll talk to anybody and answer any questions. That is a big piece of that advisory services that we talked about, and why I love startups, because or not even startups, ones that have been around for a couple of years, but that's like my geek out zone. Like I could have these kind of conversations all day.
Yeah.
And
And
use
I know,
promo code podcast whenever you're
yeah. Burl and Stacey.
I say that because, like we talked about earlier, everybody's a really good tactician, right? And there's these little pieces of information they don't have. One of that advisory services that we offer, it's just a package. It's a one-time package where we teach. It's 2 classes. You set up. We talk you through all of this stuff. I know you can't afford an accountant today. I know you can't afford certain things because you're a new business, but you can afford this one class. You take this class, you go be successful, you start making enough money, and then you can start hiring the professionals to take things off your plate. But we want businesses to be successful.
I get exactly where you're going with that. I'll throw in one more thing about that, is that I think that I know this is not what you're saying, but you absolutely, I think, should start out with a professional service like
Oh my
what you're talking
gosh.
about, even in the beginning.
Like
Yeah.
the one time.
Because I think using that excuse, like this goes back to letting professionals be professionals.
Yeah.
By the way, that idea does also come from Rich Dad Poor Dad. But the idea is this: it's like, yeah, I can't afford necessarily an attorney, an accountant, someone to help me like a professional when it comes to like realtor and
Right.
sales
But you
professional.
don't know until you reach out.
You need to, number one, reach out
Right.
and see what's there.
Absolutely.
And don't discount that. That needs to be in your
Right.
starting cost and what you're trying to
does.
do.
Well-
Sorry.
Well, I just want to be real vulnerable too. Like, so because Catherine has known me personally and like she has seen my books for years. Like when I first started, she was kind enough to not charge me because she knew I was struggling, had got divorced and was trying to build my business on my own. And I was not smart on the tax end. So just, kind of like, and people don't talk about it. That's one of the things. So I want to be real. Like I had, I don't know, like a $12,000 tax bill. And I thought I was going to lose my mind. How? I don't have $12,000.
Right.
I
Nobody
mean,
wants to
yeah.
spend
And that was, several years ago. But that was not a good feeling. I think that's when I was like, Catherine, help.
Well, and
I need your help now.
even if you're going to start out or you've been in business a couple of years and we talk about that, that class or that group, that class that I mentioned, we talk a lot about one of our goals is to arm our clients with solid and good information so that when they do go to their lawyers and they do go to their CPAs, not only can they ask educated questions, but they're going to understand the answers that are given to them at a better level. So
Like you need to know what questions to ask.
right, no one
Yeah.
knows what they don't. I couldn't tell you how to buy a house. I have no idea because I don't. That's Stacey's job, man. And she just tells me what to do and I do it. But you've been super good at, I've heard you do it to other clients. You've talked to me through certain aspects of learning about it, where you walk me through the steps to where I start to figure out there is more here I don't know. I should start engaging more help. I can arm you with parts of the stuff that you don't know, but the more you understand that there is depth to it, the more important you'll realize hiring that professional becomes.
Yeah.
I'll give you a great example. And I've done for myself and for other people, I've done tons of business plans, but I'll never forget one of the first times I did a business plan. I don't remember what the business plan was for, but ultimately it's for financing. But I don't remember the business and what I was trying to do. But I remember working, really working on this business plan, turning it into the bank. And I was really caught off guard because he said, I noticed in your business plan that you have nothing budgeted for accounting. You have nothing budgeted for attorney fees. And it was really a kind of, shock to me because I knew better. I knew that you shouldn't go into, this business idea without budgeting any money for attorneys, without budgeting. And you say, what attorney? Give me an example. Well, LLC, you mentioned it earlier, whether you have an accountant start LLC or you start it yourself. But, the bank and other professionals, especially when you're wanting money, they expect to see that I am going to use professional services, that I'm going to use an accountant, that I'm
Right.
going to use, what they don't want to see is that I'm going to do my own taxes through, TurboTax. They don't want to see that because they know that we're not as good, they know that we're not as good as a professional.
That's a super good point. When your business starts to grow, you can self-finance for a while. But if if at some point you want to go next level, you need some sort of capital, whether it's a bank loan or you
Yes.
get outside investors. And those people, they don't want your shoebox full of crap. They
Yeah.
want to see your professionally signed tax returns from previous years. So it's going to help you be more legitimate in the lending category and all of that stuff. So you're absolutely right. We talk about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You've mentioned it a couple times. There's another book I think every business owner should read. And I've read it more than once. And it's called The E-Myth. Have you read that one?
Mm-mm.
I think every business
put it in
owner
my
should
phone.
read it. And then they break it. So the E-Myth, there's one that's just for business owners. And then they even have gone out over the years and written some that are specific to industries. There's probably, I would think, a real estate one. I bet. There's one for an accountant, the E-Myth for accountants. That's one I probably pick that book up and read it every couple of years because I was just reading it last week for the third time, the E-Myth for accountants. And it reminds me, like, while I'm like, oh yeah, that was on my goal list or my to-do list, and I let it fall off, but it's important. And so that's a really great book that I recommend.
All right, I got one for you.
Okay.
It's called The Goal.
Say it again.
The Goal.
The Goal. Okay.
Okay. It's whenever I went to when I was in business school, they required that you read that book.
Huh.
Great book. I've read it 5 or 6 times. But I put yours in my phone.
I like it. Well, I think we've learned that everyone needs to talk. Just talk. And let's say too, like Catherine you do not have to be in the same city, same state.
Yeah. And
everything now is.
Yeah, for sure. Here's
remote.
a cool fact that not everybody, if you're not from Oklahoma or you're not listening from Oklahoma, you may not know. Scissortail, the name of your company, is the state bird of Oklahoma.
I have to explain that a lot to my clients in other states. I'll inevitably get that question, like, what is Scissortail
Well,
mean?
I think that like us, I knew exactly what it was,
Yeah.
but people who are not from Oklahoma would not know what that
true.
is.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and if you go in through Oklahoma City, like they have a big, what is that? Like an
Scissortail
architect
Park.
Scissortail thing across I-40.
On the bridge, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna. Am I missing anything before I go into the
No,
next?
I
Okay.
forgot to prepare for this. I have to do it on the
I
whim.
gave you help on one of them.
Okay.
So
You
we're going to continue our is it
I kind of told Catherine, overrated, underrated.
overrated, underrated, or just
okay.
right? So my first one for you is Christmas.
I was going to ask you that.
Christmas.
My Santa is depantsed. Speaking of Christmas.
He's giving you. He's mooning you.
Santa's
He's
mooning me.
Yes. All right. So
Did you
Christmas.
do that?
No. Christmas.
Oh,
Overrated, underrated, or just right?
I love Christmas. I love it. I feel like your attitude is so underrated towards Christmas.
We're talking about your thoughts on Christmas.
Oh, I mean, I love it.
Okay. So you're saying overrated, underrated, or just right?
Underrated.
Underrated.
I love Christmas. It's my favorite.
There you go.
Catherine?
I would say it's underrated also, but admitting that I had sort of fell off the Christmas love wagon for a couple of years, but I'm back on it.
She said when she got up this morning, she was in the mood. You know why? Because of the decorations.
Yeah, I've been thinking it's overrated, but I'm starting to get in line a little bit more. So after not decorating for 5 or 6 years, and
that's so good.
Christmas
like
is super, super sentimental for me. Like
Yeah.
super.
I think I didn't realize how much sentimental it was for me
And
too.
so after losing a parent and
Yeah.
losing people that I
Yeah.
love close to
Yeah.
me, other people, I will admit it took a backseat because I just couldn't sometimes.
I think you bring up a
That's
great
hard.
point that people like. I struggle with this because I want to take a thought like that for myself, and I want to be like, "Come on, get over it." But my mom died the day after Christmas.
Yeah.
Like not too long ago. So it's like
So
definitely
this will be your second year.
second year, yes.
Yeah.
And so I get it. I think that it's like you struggle with it sometimes. And then just being around family that, some of them are not there and
You notice who's missing
Yes,
when you're
yes,
all together.
yes.
That's been a weird thing for me since losing a parent too.
Yeah.
Okay. Next word is Zillow.
Ugh.
Oh,
Zillow, if you
gosh.
guys don't know, you can look up really a lot of consumers
So
look up properties
overrated.
on Zillow.
It's overrated, but I feel like, this goes 50-50 when you talk to realtors. Like, you have to do it. Like, they have us cornered,
Mhm.
but they've tried to be like their own agent and they have failed at it. I don't know if you probably aren't aware of that. They don't do it in our market because we're not big enough. But if we don't advertise on it, we're going to miss out on buyers and sellers.
Mhm.
I mean,
That's just the hard truth.
as someone who has no interest in selling or real estate in any way, I won't pretend like I don't scroll through Zillow like social media.
That is perfect. It's like a social media
I'll get on there and I'm like,
because they want to nose around. Yeah. Yeah. Like when I first started in this industry,
you weren't weren't on Zillow, but we were pretending like we were going to go buy apartment complexes yesterday. And for about 10 minutes, we thought we were going to do it.
You and Burl are,
So
oh my
overrated.
gosh. Yeah. So what do you think?
Okay. I agree with you. I think it's overrated. I think it misrepresents kind of things a little bit.
It does, like the Zillow estimate.
It's easy to look at that and
Zestimate.
think that
those aren't
I
accurate?
have the most up-to-date information now that I've
You
seen
don't.
it on Zillow. In my short time of really just looking at it, I didn't even know what Zillow was, honestly, before you and I met. So, but I see it now that it's pretty big, and I've worked on some leads from it. So I
I
understand.
mean, we get good leads and I'm thankful for them, but it is very misleading. Like a Zestimate, like so that's not even a real word because it's not even a real number that they give you.
Tell you what, like if you bought this house, this would be your monthly estimated house payment. You're like plus taxes, plus P&I, plus blah,
Right.
blah,
Plus
blah.
insurance. And plus, like when they tell you, like, oh, your house is worth this. No, it's not. It's so misleading. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm going
Okay.
to get off that. I'm going to go off on a tangent.
Soapbox sister right
I know. I'm about to get all kinds of
I
worked
picked the
up.
right one.
Whoa.
I picked the right one.
I've done
All right.
a TikTok on that.
Last one is Vegas food.
Oh my
Las
gosh.
Vegas
I
food.
was going to say that.
I'm ahead of
He's
you.
taking two
Works,
of mine.
it's just the works.
Well, all the places but one, Mr. Chow, overrated.
Yeah.
I was telling
how much
Catherine,
was our bill at
stupid.
Mr.
It was
Chow?
over $300.
$300 with did you even have a drink there? Alcoholic drink?
I had one drink.
So we're talking about one drink.
So overrated.
So it's not like a big alcohol bill.
Right, right.
Yeah.
you know.
No.
Very overrated.
I was telling Catherine and Devin about it last night. We pretty much had spaghetti. It's Mr.
I had
Chow's
spaghetti as a
noodles.
dessert. I mean,
It was like your first
appetizer,
course.
Appetizer, yeah.
Like I don't even
It was
when
like,
it said Mr. Chow's noodles,
And you would think
it's gonna be like
Asian
an
noodles.
Asian noodles. Yeah.
very
No.
overrated.
And it came out with
I think it's all overrated. Not just Mr. Chow's.
it was
but,
so disappointing. No, but that Italian place we ate at
No,
was
I'm not saying it wasn't decent.
but we went off the strip for that Italian place.
Yeah.
That was like where
What
the
were you guys
locals go.
doing?
The NFR.
You keep saying that those letters like I know what the
National Finals Rodeo.
Okay.
So like all rodeos. All rodeos end in
That's
Vegas.
where the Cowboys
You
were.
do not live in the country.
Yeah. So it's like
That's
the
hilarious.
Super Bowl of rodeo.
That's why you
Super
had
Bowl.
fringe on your purse.
I've had that purse a long
I know,
time.
and I've made fun of it in my head a long time.
Okay. You got
Shitty
any
friend.
or did you
Well,
prepare?
you took two of mine. Okay.
You didn't prepare.
I
Yeah, fix
didn't
it. We were
prepare.
curling hair.
Yeah. It's not done, by the way. Okay. Let me think for just a minute.
Catherine, you're not going to
Office managers.
Office managers.
Underrated all day long.
Office managers.
You better say the right answer.
Exactly. I know. I don't even know why
I don't even know.
he's having a thing. Like in this industry, not
in
in,
real estate?
yeah, not
in
in
real
past.
estate.
In all.
I don't own an office like you do. I don't,
I-
meaning that's not, I absolutely think they are underrated for sure.
I own a completely cloud-based remote environment firm, and I couldn't survive without an office manager.
I'm
Like,
definitely underrated.
could not have grown my business without Devin. And then we brought on Kayla.
So you're specifically asking me about Devin.
No,
Devin
just-
is definitely underrated.
Devin for sure. But
Yeah.
I just mean office like so as a business owner, like I think you have to take a big leap of faith to say, can I afford someone?
All right, good.
Burl's
Next one.
being redonkulous. Not Devin, office managers.
I mean, underrated for sure.
Okay.
Go
All
ahead.
right. The movie Christmas Story.
I think it's underrated.
Yes.
I think so. I think it's underrated because I love going back and watch those old movies.
Oh, it plays all day long on Christmas Day.
But we haven't watched it. We need to
Have
watch
you
it.
seen the grown-up one?
No, I heard that they
It's on HBO.
Have you-
should seen it? I haven't seen
I
it.
think that those things we do not do it. We did
It's
something.
the same guy though. It's the same people.
it's on HBO. Oh, we're doing a fire
It's the only
tonight and
one
we're
on
watching
my-
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things it's like I think we did great on Thanksgiving is we watched Thanksgiving Parade. Whenever I was a kid, we did that. a
Yeah,
lot.
same.
But yet, then you seem to get away from it a little bit.
We
as
watch
adults.
Christmas Story every year.
Yeah, we do
I think
too.
it's
It's my
underrated.
favorite movie.
I
My
really
kids
do.
are adultish now, and we still watch the same Christmas movies when they come home, and we
Yeah.
do all that stuff. Christmas music.
Oh, underrated. I love Christmas music.
Okay. For the whole month of December,
No.
I only like Christmas music on the 24th and the 25th.
Oh, no. I was playing it yesterday when I
I
was getting the
know.
decorate. Look. I know.
I also really snobby about my Christmas music because I only want it to be like symphony or orchestra or opera type. I don't want that
I don't-
reindeer sample.
Carol of the
crap.
Bells by SWV.
Yes. Oh.
That's what you do. That's the best Christmas song ever. Ever.
Can you sing it? I don't even know what
I
we're
can-
talking.
no.
Are you speaking English? Is that a rap?
SWV. Yeah.
What is that?
Old go. It had
Where-
Beyonce in
Where
it.
were you in the 90s if you don't know
Yeah,
who
it had,
SWV
it had
is?
Beyonce in it.
I get so weak and-
Yeah, there you go. See,
Why,
she
why are we
knows.
getting so quiet? Get up to that mic and sing it. Wow.
Okay, you have a last one, final one.
I'm going to stick with Christmas theme. Christmas
No
lights.
business. Oh, you did.
I
The
did. I did
office
business.
manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
Christmas lights.
Definitely. I feel like they're overrated, honestly.
No.
And I think that it's like, I remember as a kid, like as going to my grandparents' house, okay, we're going to go look at Christmas lights, and we drive through neighborhoods and we look at Christmas lights. That was a lot of fun, but I can't remember the last time.
You're
we've
not
done
going to
that.
take me on a date to go look at Christmas lights?
mean, we
like
can
we
do
could
that
drive
for
to
sure.
Chickasha.
That's
Do
pretty
you remember?
Yes.
overrated.
We piled all of our kids, only three at the time.
I didn't have little
We
Addie.
didn't have Addison yet. In the back of that big old expedition,
Went to
got them all in their
Chickasha.
pajamas, piled them up in the back of the car, got ourselves some hot chocolate, and drove all the way out to Chickasha
Yep.
to look at Christmas lights.
I love it.
Yeah, it's
I
fun.
love Christmas lights. I get not driving through neighborhoods anymore. Like we used to do that as a kid, but that's kind of gone away.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
That's fun.
I like
And-
going to the parks.
Yeah, like they have one in Yukon, Chickasha,
Yes.
Ardmore. They have
Like
one,
I
that
haven't
big one.
been to Chickasha in a long time.
You
probably
turn your radio station to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Station
love
that's
like the
non-existent
dancing.
and-
Yeah.
That's sweet. I like that.
Yeah.
That's fun for me. But no, I'm with you. I don't want to drive through some other
Neighborhood. Yeah. There's a neighborhood in Oklahoma City, like Ski Island. I can remember as a kid driving up there.
I think that's definitely like small town because you're not going to go through an entire neighborhood that really has all Christmas lights around here.
There
I don't
is
think
a
so.
street here in Elk City. I think it's Jamie. That's the name of it. But they have like the girls and I used to do it when they were little. So the 12 days of Christmas, each house on that street has.
Oh, that's cute.
So the girls and I would drive down it and then play the song and sing in front of
Doesn't
each
your
house.
big park down here do something cool?
Yeah.
For Christmas. Yeah.
It is pretty cool. But that's small town. Like it's so cool.
Edmond does some really cool. We've got one of our whole parks lights up, and you can walk through it. And it's
Oh yeah, the
Ah.
park
and
does have that,
we'll
doesn't
do a
it?
big
Yeah.
ice
I
skating
saw it.
rink and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff out there.
That's fun. Hey, let's see how many different places we can go look at lights before Christmas.
Yeah.
You wanna
Burl,
do that?
sounds
Can we
fun.
do
Great.
that?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, Catherine, thank you so much for being on our podcast. Just one more time, tell how people can get in touch with you.
You can get on our website, which is Scissortail Resource Group. Just type that in. We should pop up. And there's a button that says schedule an appointment, and we
great.
will hang out with you.
Thank you for being our guest. Thank you for coming to visit. It's always enjoy seeing you, and I know
Yeah.
Stacey does.
Love it. I know tax stuff's not fun, but it's part of life.
All
It's a
right.
blast.
You guys have a great day. Please remember to follow our podcast,
Share
review
it.
it, share it. We're really just trying to expand it and get it out there. And
Maybe my friend will.
and if you
listen to
guys
it.
have questions, you guys are welcome to email us. Yours is what? Stacey Carnes at Yahoo or
Mhm.
Gmail, or is it Yahoo?
Yahoo.
Stacey Carnes at yahoo.com.
I'm working on switching everything.
Yeah, so you
That
can
is
send a
gotta be
question to
said.
that
Oh.
if you want to
And
I
there's
can
a-
show you how
ask
to
a
do it.
question. Or
There's my tip.
topic.
Don't brand yourself around your name. Okay.
Oh, that's actually 101. Like, that's why Scissortail doesn't
Oh.
have my name in it exactly.
Yeah.
Because when I retire, I want someone else to run it for me and not call me with questions.
Yeah.
There you go. Good advice. All right. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day.